Hey everyone, this is Phillip and welcome to the PhILLIP Show. As usual, get your coffee. Now, disclaimer, it's been hot outside and I said this on another show, but I'm going to say it again. I am drinking my really cold water. I'm just going to use my Viking mug that I got from Miami Valley Pottery because it's too hot for coffee right now. I know there's iced coffee, maybe next time. But listen, so this is Pride Month, and the PhILLIP Show has partnered with YS Pride to present amazing and inspiring stories. This complete series is called Inspiring Stories That Transcend. And we have some wonderful guests who are going to tell about their journey and things that are going on in their lives. You get to meet them, you get to hear, you get to see. And one of the things that we're hoping that this does is bring awareness, education, and faces to stories that you may or may not know. We're hoping to break down barriers as well as expand our understanding of people who walk along this journey with us, beside us, and a lot of times those people are us. So I am super excited today to jump into these stories. So I want to welcome to the PhILLIP Show, under the direction of YS Pride 2021, we have Jenney and Alex. Jenney and Alex, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Alex, how you doing?
I'm pretty fantastic, I think.
Oh, fantastic, you think? Well, that's like half great. That is half great. So Jenney, I want to start with you. You guys have such a dynamic story, and I want to be as out of the way as I can, just to hear about your journey. So tell us just a little bit about your story.
Well, I am a trans woman. I came out at around 17 to my family, but immediately decided to join the Navy. And I went into the Navy as a man and wasn't able to last for very long. I made it 3 years before I was discharged, medically and honorably, for gender identity disorder, which is no longer a thing. Now it's gender dysphoria. And from there, I ended up getting involved in like drugs and got really heavily into my recovery from my bipolar disorder and PTSD. And it took a long time and it took a lot of work, but I was able to get through it and achieve my goals. I get surgery. And since that was about 7-8 years ago, and since then I've just been living my life.
Wow, what a dynamic story. Let me ask you this. You said that you were you're honorably discharged, but they said that you had a disorder.
Yeah, I was medically honorably discharged.
Okay. And tell us the name of the disorder that they claimed that you had again.
At the time, it was in the DSM. At the time, it was gender identity disorder. Okay. Since then, that was in 2008. Since then, the DSM has been updated, and gender identity disorder is no more. Now it's gender dysphoria.
For people who may not know, what does DSM stand for? Ooh, that is a Jeopardy question.
Diagnostic something manual.
Okay, so it's a
diagnostic statistical manual.
Okay, diagnostic statistical manual. So this is something that they use to gauge how they're going to label you.
Basically.
Okay, got you. All right. So we're going to come back to your story, Alex.
Okay.
I know. Get ready for the camera. It's your turn. So Alex, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, so I'm a blind trans man. My gender kind of story, I would say, begins probably in mid-2016 when I started to question things like, maybe I'm not a girl. But I was just like, nope, I'm not doing anything about this. There is no way. Nope. Because I knew, the kind of backlash I would get from people in my family and things. And I was just like, no, this isn't happening. So come 2000, I would say 17, it was, I thought, well, maybe I'm gender fluid. So I started using my birth name with she, her, and they, them pronouns, as well as the name Alex. So it was kind of a shift in my brain at first. And then in, I want to say 2018, kind of end of 19, the shifting kind of stopped. And then in 2019, I figured out in March that, nope, I'm a guy. So, yeah, and I've been on HRT since, we'll say, it's January 21st of 2020, and so good times. That's just a little bit of it, yeah.
Wow. Jenney, for you, how did you, and we'll come back to your backstory, but I'm very interested to know, how did both of you meet and become partners?
So I'm actually married to a cisgender man, and I met him about 5 years ago, and then about three years ago.
It was December 16th of
2018.
Yes.
We Alex and I met at a.
No, it was before then that we met. We met August 13th of 2017.
Right. So okay. So wow, like 4 years ago then. So we met at a picnic, a Trans Ohio Unity picnic.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was a special picnic just for the transgender community. And we met there and became friends pretty quickly. It took about a year before, things, we started developing feelings. And me and my then boyfriend, we were in an open poly relationship. Okay. And so we talked about it, and we decided to bring Alex in to our relationship together. And that was 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, that was 2018, December 16th.
So Alex joined my husband and I, or my then boyfriend and I. And since then, my husband and I got married. And okay. Alex has stayed with us the whole time, the three of us together as a poly triad.
Wow. Wow. That's definitely not what somebody would assume, right?
Right.
That's definitely not what somebody would assume. So for your story, let's go back before the military. What made you want to go into the military?
A few things. My father was in the military, so I wanted to follow his footsteps. I wanted to join the Navy as an IT to learn skills so that after the Navy, I could easily get a job. Okay. And get a skilled job, not just like working in a restaurant or something or a store, which kind of worked out. And also I joined the military so that I could save up money so that after I left the Navy, I could transition and pursue surgery.
So you already knew prior to going into the military who you were and what your goals were? Oh,
yes, I did.
Now, how was that for you, knowing that, but also going into the military?
Well, it was very hard.
Seems dangerous.
Yeah, it is dangerous. I had this huge secret that I had to keep covered up. And after I had been in for a while, it started to kind of boil over and it started to affect my mental health. I became very depressed. And I remember going into work one day and my chief, my boss, looked at me and said, your depression has been affecting your work. You need to see a therapist. And I said, I don't want to see a therapist. And he said, I don't care. You're seeing a therapist. I'm ordering you to see a therapist. So that's how I ended up seeing a therapist in the Navy. Didn't have much of a choice in the matter.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this, because a lot of times people associate individuals who transition to transgender as having mental issues. So did you have you didn't get any sort of depression? Were you depressed before going into the military?
That's a hard question to answer. I think that I might have been dealing with some depression before going into the military, but it wasn't anything that I noticed or my family noticed.
Sure.
But I will say this. When I was in the middle of being in the Navy, it was about a year before I left. I went home on leave and for my 20th birthday. And while I was home on leave, my parents sat down with me and said, we don't think that you're really transgender. We think that you're just mentally ill. And that once you get that taken care of in therapy, then you won't feel like you're transgender anymore.
Oh, so they
Which,
thought your identity of transgender was just something that could be taken care of with therapy.
pretty much.
Gotcha.
And it turned out that that was completely not true.
Yeah.
But that led to me going back to work in the Navy and feeling extremely depressed.
Yeah.
And it was then after that I got ordered to see a therapist. Yeah.
Sure. I would imagine that type of pressure, there's no relief for you kind of at all. You
Right.
can't really be yourself at home now, and you can't really be yourself at your job, in your career. Wow, that's a lot of weight to actually have. Wow. So Alex, let me ask you. So were you born blind, or was it something that became your reality?
All right. I have what's called ROP, or retinopathy of prematurity. So when I was born 1 pound and 9 ounces, and they rushed me to the incubator to get oxygen. And so the oxygen was what detached my retinas. So that's what happened with that.
Okay. So I'm very curious, and I'm sure a lot of people are curious, because there's so many stereotypes that come along with people coming to terms with who they are. People think it's because of this, it's because of this. I'm interested to know, at what age did you know that you were not a girl?
I would say probably it was 2016. So like I'm 38 now. So 34, maybe, if I'm doing the math right. 34 if I'm doing the math right. So it was late for me.
Sure.
So for me, what came first was I figured out my sexuality first, right? And then the gender stuff goes, hi, we're here now.
Okay.
Like, okay.
So when you say you figured out your sexuality first,
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
Well, I have been, I want to say, almost all over the sexuality spectrum, I feel like. I thought I was lesbian, bi for a while. And eventually I did settle on that I am pansexual. So okay. Gender doesn't matter to me at all. But it took a while for me to be able to say that. I used to think that I had to be one or the other, like straight or gay, or probably like more like gay or bi. I didn't think I could. When I went back to thinking I was a lesbian, or feeling that I had been a lesbian, I felt like I had to pick something. I don't know.
Sure,
for a while, that's what I felt like. So yeah.
And then after you just reconciled and said, "Hey, this is who I am," how has life been for you after that?
Pretty awesome, I think.
Pretty awesome.
At least because I've got I have a really good support system, so it's been pretty fantastic.
So your support system has really helped.
Oh yeah.
And I know, Jenney, I know that you were talking about you guys went to an event and
yes.
met each other. And do you go to a lot of different events? And if so, or if not, how do those events help in supporting who you are?
Well, I used to go to, so COVID happened and that kind of shut everything down. And
that shut it all down.
It shut it all down. But before that, I actually, a while before that, I was helping to facilitate a trans peer support group.
Okay.
So I was one of two people that was in charge of this group. And I did that for several years. Before I decided to take a step back and step down from it. And that was about a year or so before before COVID hit. And as part of that, I went to a lot of events there, especially here in Columbus. There is a very large trans community, and there's a lot of events that happen as part of that.
I know one of the things that we are interested in helping with is to promote those areas of acceptance and comfort and support for the community. How much has knowing that there's a place or a process, even being a part of the planning of those, how much do you think that those who attend?
Well, I like to think that it helps a lot. I've put a lot of work and effort into it over the years, and spent a lot of time supporting others in doing the same thing. So I think the evidence is in how many people go to those meetings and events, and how they consistently go. That there are so many people that show up really says a lot about how much it helps people.
Yeah, I would imagine, especially those who return, like those who return, you can get a gauge for seeing how needed or how relevant it is by those who attend for the first time. But then when you see people repeatedly, that's like, okay, you're finding value here because you're returning. So that's it. I'm sure for you, being somebody that's part of it and kind of putting the things together, I'm sure that's very relieving to see that, okay, so what I'm doing matters.
Makes a difference. At the trans peer support group that I facilitated, there was anywhere from 7 to 25 people at any given meeting, and the meetings were weekly, every week.
What's the age range that you would say would be at the meetings?
From 18 up until the 70s and 80s. We generally, if somebody that was younger than 18 came to the meeting, we would invite them, but we would ask them to look elsewhere for support in the future. And we didn't just say, "You're sorry, sucks to be you. You can't be with us."
Yeah.
We gave them resources and said, "Here's the Kaleidoscope Youth Center. Go check them out." That kind of thing.
Is that because some of the programming would be geared towards their age bracket specifically?
Yes. The Kaleidoscope Youth Center is an LGBT focused youth center specifically for the gay and trans community.
That's wonderful. That's a really good to note that there is a place that you can go that really caters to where you are in your journey and in your life.
Yeah.
Because the different stages call for different conversations and different communications and different ways of operating, especially if you're a youth. Yeah. So Alex, let me ask you. So for you, what do you, day in and day out, what do you do?
Well,
we're just going to get all in your business.
All right. It's cool. Well, I do things. I don't know. I stay at home.
Okay.
But I do a lot of like the, housework, things like that. And I like to write. So I do that some. And
awesome.
I don't know. Just that kind of stuff. And
now, what would you say? What would you say to someone who was thinking that they're ready to be who they really are? Through your experience, what would you say to? I don't want to say to encourage them. What would you say to them, just in general?
Listen to yourself and remember that your journey is your own journey. You shouldn't let anyone, no matter who they are, tell you anything like, oh, you have to do it this way, or even things like, this isn't who you really are. It's because of this or that it's because of this, that, and the other thing that you're doing this. It's not who you are. It's because of your influences or whatever. Still continue on your own path.
Now, have you had to kind of defend yourself in the same way for the people who may be telling you those same things? Did you have to kind of stand up for yourself? This is actually me, and I'm going to follow my own path?
Basically, yes. There are people in my existence who don't agree with my transition. And I think I would be a lot better now. But someone said to me, we were talking on the phone, and they said, everything I've ever read about people that were transgender, they always know when they're young. And I told this person, I said, I don't know the why of things necessarily, but this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And they said we'd have to agree to disagree. Now, this is before I started transitioning as far as like being on HRT and stuff. But, you always think about the best things to say after that happens. And yeah. It was just like, and if I would say to this person now, I would say, you know, one size doesn't fit all. And that's what these journeys are. It's your own story. So, you know, where there are similarities, there are also differences.
That's really that's a powerful statement. Where there's similarities, there are also differences. You can't paint anybody or any one group of people with a broad brush and say everybody experiences it this way. Everybody transitions this way, because you can't be absolute that way, because like you said, we all have our own individual journeys.
Mm-hmm.
That was good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that one down. So Jenney, let me ask you about your journey. You had mentioned that your family was saying this is just something that you need to kind of therapy your way out of. You know, so how is your relationship now that you've decided to be yourself? How is your relationship now with your family?
It came a long way. At first, it was a little bit rough, and it took a little while for my parents to come around, but they did. And I think that you could say at first that they wanted to be supportive, but they were struggling with their own emotions. Their own emotions were getting in the way. But they wanted to be there. They knew what the right thing to do was. They just struggled with their own feelings that was kind of stopping them from showing up authentically. So now my parents I don't have any problems with them. Both my mom and my dad are very supportive of me.
That is wonderful. And that is very, I love to hear stories like that, because, you know, for every story you hear that has a successful track, you know, you hear so many, and I'm sure you know, that have that real devastating result where you don't talk to your family again. You know, they just don't accept it at all. And I know that both require a lot of effort, you know, both on everybody's part. You know, it's very different to just kind of say, hey, this is me, accept me. That's a hard and very courageous thing to do. You know, equally, it's very difficult for some parents to kind of consume all that. And I definitely understand, because I hear those stories all the time where the parents are just like, oh, what do we do now?
Yeah.
How do we navigate this? So for you, what's next for you?
Well, I'm working towards learning to program.
Okay. Wait a minute. Computers?
Yes, computers.
Oh, bless your heart. I cannot. I can do graphic design, but if you throw me some code, I'm not doing it.
I really enjoy it, and you know, it's more of going to be a hobby, I think, for me. Because I love what I do right now. I'm a recovery guide for a mental health organization. I work for My Recovery Works, and I get to listen and talk to people and help people through their journey. And because I've been there, I understand, and I understand in a way that a therapist doesn't. In that I have transitioned from male to female. I have bipolar disorder, and I'm in recovery from it actively, and I'm doing very well with that. I have PTSD, and again, the same thing. I've come a very long way. Anxiety. I have a history of homelessness and drug abuse, and I've pulled through all of these trials and tribulations and gotten to a point where now I'm able to turn around and give back to the community.
That is beautiful. And that's awesome. Do you find that some of the people that you're helping have a lot of the same story that you have when it comes to maybe the homelessness or the addiction?
I find similarities in my story with other people's stories all the time. That's what I do. I've been through so much, so I'm able to listen to other people's stories and be like, you know what, I really understand.
Yeah, and it's really good to have somebody, you know, therapy is really great and I love it. But when you can speak to somebody who may have walked that same path, not only do they have a different perspective, but there is a sense of care and a sense of concern that often is not available if you haven't experienced that. There's a heart connection as well as a therapy mind connection.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you have those similarities. If you were to speak to someone very similar to the question that I asked Alex, because people are going to be watching this, and our goal is to provide hope, and inspiration. You've been through a lot, and now you're coming out the other side, and along with that, you're doing something that not only continues to transform your life, but you're instrumental in the transformation of so many people's lives. If you are to speak to someone who is struggling, who really doesn't know what to do, because a lot of times that's what it is. Like, people just don't know what to do. How would you encourage somebody if they were just kind of just struggling with just life in general, not knowing which way to go?
I would say that there is always hope. That even when all seems hopeless, there is still always that glimmer of hope there, that if you can find that and hold on to that, it will see you through. I went through a phase in my life where I lost all hope. And as a part of that, I bought a car, which kind of seems a little backwards, but believe me, there's a whole story to that. In buying a car, I lost the ability to get my surgery, and my entire life up until that point had been dedicated towards getting my surgery. Wow. So I felt hopeless, absolutely hopeless, in that I wasn't going to be able to get my surgery. It wasn't going to work out, but at least I had this car so I could get around town. So wow. I named my car Hope.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because the idea was, this was literally what was going through my mind. I am hopeless, but at least I have hope. The car.
Yeah, right. Wow.
And it turns out that it took a while, but things worked out for me. It turned out that because I had PTSD from when I was in the Navy, I ended up getting a disability through the VA. Okay. And that came through like in the middle of a heavy drug addicted period of my life because I was hopeless. So I picked up drugs. Yeah. So in the middle of that, suddenly I had money that was coming in that I wasn't expecting. And what I thought was a hopeless situation turned out to actually have hope. And I was able to pull myself out of there and find my way to a solution for myself.
Wow. That's very inspiring. There's always hope. There's always hope. Even if it's not a car, but there's always
yes.
But there's always hope. Well, Jenney and Alex, I am so glad that you are here today. Your stories have just brightened my day. Alex, thank you so much for hanging with us.
You are welcome.
And Jenney, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and your inspiration.
Absolutely.
And continue to share your story, continue to provide that hope, because I can tell that the people who you come in contact with are better for your participation in that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are totally welcome. Well, if you got nothing else out of today, remember, no matter what you're going through, no matter what challenges come your way, no matter the storm, no matter the trial, no matter if it looks too dark, like Jenney said, there is always hope. Look around, search. There are people who are willing, able, and ready to help you find your way on whatever journey that you are on. So this has been Inspiring Stories That Transcend for YS Pride 2021. And remember that you are the best you in the world. Have a good day.